welcome back to part 2 of my video game collection, and today we are out in the man cave slash garage, and I wanted to go through and show you all the games that I have out here. If you watched my first collection video, I mentioned that the room that I'm in right now has a pretty good amount of space, but I do have my office in there as well, and since I work from home, my office does take up a pretty good amount of space in there. I've got a large printer and things like that. So about half of that room has to be dedicated to other things besides games. So it's a good news, bad news scenario though, because the way our house is set up, the lower level connects to the garage. So the garage is only steps away from the game room downstairs. They're both underneath the main level of the house. So when I have friends over and we're having a game night or something like that, it's pretty easy to go in and out between here, which I have kind of more of an arcade vibe to, especially when I don't have these bright lights on and it's darker in here. And then going inside and playing console games on the big screen TV and stuff like that. So as I was going through and planning out this video, I was debating as to how much of my other stuff in my garage I wanted to show. If you've watched my other videos, then you've probably seen that I've got a wide variety of interests, including biking. I put some biking videos up here, cars, things like that. And I've got things related to all those different hobbies that I keep out here as well. This truly is a man cave, my personal man cave. I figured instead of connecting that to this video, I would do a separate video where I'll talk about the other things in my man cave here aside from the games. So if you're interested, I will put a link to that video. Once I post that, I'll put a link to that in this video. But at this point, let's go ahead and let's take a look. I'm going to grab the camera and we're going to walk around, and first we're going to look at the big things here in the room, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start looking through more of the boxes. All right, now starting off as we walk into the room, the first thing that you see here is my arcade cabinet, and I've done some videos. Obviously my Arcade Chronicles videos focus on the arcade cabinet, and I've done some other videos, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the setup on it, just to say it's a conversion cab that was formerly Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and I put a multi-cade board in it, a board that basically has like a mini PC on it, and it's got 1066 games all pre-configured, and it's got a JAMA connection and all that, so it's very authentic as an arcade experience, and also it's easily converted back to a Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 if I ever want to do that. And you've probably seen this before as well, but I've got my cool arcade sign up there. Picked that up at a garage sale where they had owned a bar and were clearing out old stuff from the bar. And then this is my Firepower pinball machine, which is awesome. Love it. Love those 80s Williams sound effects. And then let's go ahead and continue to walk across here. I've got a little gaming hub set up over here. Got a CRT TV up here that I use for playing games like light gun games and things like that. And I used to have a flat screen in here actually, and I downgraded or upgraded or side graded, whatever you'd call it, to this tube TV that I picked up for 49 cents. As soon as I saw that little TV, I knew it was one to pick up because it's a real late model Toshiba, like probably one of the last tube TVs that they made. It's got component inputs, S-video inputs, it's got everything on it, and it's a great size for that spot. So I got rid of the flat screen and moved back to the tube TV. I can't say too many people probably are making that decision. Then you can see I've got that board there is actually the Ultimate MK3 board. Below that, on the next shelf down there, you can see I've got an old MP3 player that I use for my music here, and right now I've got Arcade Ambiance 1986 playing. Then I've got a slim PS1 sitting there that I keep hooked up to this TV, again, mostly to play light games, or light gun games, I should say. It's got one of the little screens on it. I believe I picked up that entire setup for $10 or $15. And then down here, got my these bins, which are very efficiently packed with lots and lots of goodies, and we're going to go ahead and dig into these in just a minute here. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick walk over to the other corner of the room where I've got kind of a little secondary stash set up here. The lighting's not so great over here, so I've got a headlight on. Hopefully that'll help you to be able to see a little bit. So I've got some things here that, you know, they've been replaced, or I'm just not sure if I'm interested in them anymore. And so I've just been kind of stashing them back here because I'm not sure what to do with them. I'll probably either sell them or trade them or something, but it's just taking the time to do all that. So let's go ahead and take a look though. This is a ColecoVision steering wheel. Picked that up really cheap at a garage sale. Always was curious to check it out. Did check it out. It was cute. It was fun. Will I keep going back and playing it? I don't know. And you know, it takes up a lot of space, and it's probably worth too much for me to keep it around and never play it. So we'll see. I may or may not get rid of that. And then we've got an Atari Flashback 2 that they basically gave away at a garage sale. And I really, again, I've got a couple 2600s. I think I've mentioned that before, plus a 7800. But it was in the box and it was practically free, so I went ahead and took it. And I've played with it once or twice, so it's not been a total waste. Snuck in here is a APF TV Fun Pong machine. This is actually the only Pong machine that I own. It's one I just picked up maybe in the last year or so. And I am keeping that. I just wasn't sure where to put it, so it just lives there for now. Next over, we've got this ColecoVision here that I picked up at a garage sale. It has no front faceplate, as you can see. And I'm not sure if that's something that I can fix or not. This system works just fine, so it's unfortunate that it you know, is missing that faceplate. But next to that, we've got a fat PS2, and that's my old PS2 that I used for years before I got my Slim. And I believe that's got a network adapter on the back, if I'm not mistaken. Above that, we've got a gray Dreamcast, and again, that was my old Dreamcast before I found my Sega Sports one a year or two ago. Then we've got an original Xbox, and I've got a few of these. I really don't pick those up unless I mean, if I see one for $5, I'm probably going to pick it up because why not? And I believe every one I've picked up lately has been $5 or less, which is just crazy for an Xbox. You know, the things like the disk drives and stuff like that are fairly unreliable on Xboxes, so it's not a bad system to have extra parts and spares laying around for anyway. So when you find them for $5, why the heck not? And I've got a lot of Xbox games. Okay, so continuing on here, that gray N64, that's my old N64 before I got the one that I'm using now, which is the jungle green one. And again, that's probably been a couple years. I think that thing's got a memory expansion in it, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, who knows? What am I going to do with it? Then we've got a PS2 network adapter, brand new, because why not? And then an Indigo GameCube with a Game Boy player, and I do have the disc for that as well. That's kind of a weak spot with a lot of Game Boy players these days. They don't have the discs anymore. But yes, that one does have one. Next to that, we've got the old Toaster NES, and again, just found that cheap, works fine. I have plenty of NESs, so not sure. And then finally up at the top, and again, I apologize, the lighting's not the best and this angle's not the best, but tucked away back there behind that box is a Super Nintendo, which I believe is fully functional and works great. And then above that is another slim PS1 that I believe I got for just like $2 or $3. This, like I said, is just kind of random spares and things like that. So we're going to go ahead now. We're going to dig into the meat of the collection out in these boxes out here. All right, so stay tuned. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and start digging through each of these boxes here. And I have to say that while I'm looking forward to showing this to you, I can't say I'm entirely looking forward to doing this, because as you can see, these boxes are packed so tight, hopefully you can see that, that once I pull everything out, it's going to be a chore getting it all back in, but the things I do for my audience. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So first of all, we've got a GameCom, and this was featured in one of my recent pickups videos. It's pretty beat up, but it does work. And I don't have any games for it or anything like that, but I was pretty excited to find it, you know, just to find it out in the wild, and for $6.99 I think it was. Next up here we've got a Yobo NES, I guess, clone system. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Next up I've got a couple of gun cons out here, and I use these, like I said, to play light gun games on the tube TV out here. And that's I keep those out here. You saw I had some light guns in the house. I've got one of these that I just see everywhere, these Golden Tee TV games. And I actually bought this because I had intended for a while that I was going to maybe try to pull the trackball unit out of this thing and build a trackball for my arcade using the innards of this, but as I looked into it more, it just didn't seem that feasible. But yeah, price tag's still on it, $1.99. So didn't waste a lot of money on that. Next up here, we've got a JVC XI, and I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the XI or not, so I'll give you a quick overview on it. It is a combination Sega CD and Sega Genesis unit that also incorporates features like karaoke, additional inputs and outputs that you don't typically have on this system. Plus it runs off of just one adapter. And this was my pride and joy in my Sega Genesis collection until I found that cheap CDX. And then unfortunately the XI, with, I might add, a new laser. I replaced the laser in this thing a couple years ago because it was getting flaky on me. So this thing's got like a brand new laser in it too, and now unfortunately it just sits in a box for now. And if I had the space, I would probably put them all out, but I don't want my room to be completely overrun with games, because we do entertain down there and things like that as well. So, and I've got a lot out there already, so I keep this stuff away for now, but eventually if I either get another house or like I said, move my office out of there, I may put more of this stuff out. So yeah, anyway, got some paddles, some ColecoVision Super Action controllers, which these things are terrible. Let's see, got a couple Game Gears in here. These were picked up in a lot. I think that at least one of them has cap issues, and I've got one that's perfect. But again, what do you do with these? I guess I could just donate them, but that seems kind of a shame. But they're not worth anything. Next up, I've got a couple Super NESs here, and one of these I plan to put together with the Exertainment, the Life Fitness Exertainment exercise bike. So yes, I'm going to pair one of these with that. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about what I want to do with that, if I want to keep that or try to sell that or whatever. But so yeah, one of these, and the other one doesn't work. It's got a weird issue where it'll power on, but when it goes into mode 7 in any game, it like distorts. So that one, I don't know, it's worth it to try to fix it or what. They were both picked up very cheap. A Magnavox Odyssey 2. It's got a couple cords attached to it. Probably picked up for $4.99 at Goodwill. You know, I had wanted one of these for a long time. Actually, ever since I was a kid, I had an interest in them because one of my cousins actually had an Odyssey 2. And I remember that, you know, it looked worse than Atari to me at the time, but it was a video game. It had different games on it. It had kind of a different aesthetic to it, if you will, than Atari or Intellivision. So I was always really curious about it and wanted to check one out. But the only time I ever ran into them, they were ridiculously overpriced. And I don't really buy on eBay, so I just, you know, kept my eyes open, and eventually for $4.99 this fell in my lap. And it's in fantastic condition, works great, but I've really only plugged it in once or twice. Oh yeah, these Game Boy battery packs, and you know, I got these in a lot, and I was ready to just toss these, and for some reason I took a chance, which, you know, don't try this at home, kids, I guess, but I did try plugging them in, and to my shock and amazement, they actually did hold a charge. You know, I checked to make sure they didn't overheat or anything like that they would do if they were shorting out or something like that. But I left them plugged in for a little while, kind of monitoring them, and then I plugged it into the Game Boy, and lo and behold, it charged and held a charge and powered the Game Boy for a while. So I didn't toss them. I held on to them. And I think that's it for this box. Got some random manuals and things like that. So let's go ahead and jump to box number 2. All right, on to box number 2. This one's a little bit smaller. This is a small TV. What else do we have here? Got a Game Boy. Set of accessories for Game Boy Advance. I think that came with one of the Game Boys that I have in my game room. Here, I actually have yet another slim PS1 with screen, and this one came with this handy traveler's case as well as a battery that also still holds a charge. So that's cool. And then we've got a power base converter. And one of my pride and joys, it breaks my heart that it stays in a box most of the time, but it's my Sega Genesis Sega CD combo unit. Works fine, has no problems. So this is the best sound chip, Model 1 Genesis, mounted on a Model 1 Sega CD. And I do pull this out every now and then just because it's so great to use. And it's, I mean, is there a more awesome looking console in existence than this Battleship? I've heard it referred to as the Battleship. What a great name for a great system. And then I got a Wiko command control joystick in here. I actually have 2 of these that I'll use, you know, for my Atari or my Commodore 64 or any other number of things. All right, like I said, box number 2 is a fairly small box. So let's go ahead on Genesis connector cable. Let's go ahead and move on to box number 3. All right, back again with box number 3, and let's go ahead and dig into it. So first of all, I've got my box of Intellivision games here. And you know, Intellivision's my first love, as I've told you before in some of my other videos. So it makes me sad that I can't have my Intellivision games out, but I don't have, you know, as a kid I had all my games boxed, and then one day I came up with the brilliant idea that I would cut up all the boxes and tape the titles to binders that I put all my cartridges in. Worst decision ever. So now I've got all these loose carts, and I've picked up a bunch more loose carts over the years. So I just don't have anywhere to put them right now. Eventually I would of course love to have these out in my game room again, but not now. But you can see there I've got some good games in here. Worm Whomper, that's a little bit more of a rare game. Happy Trails isn't super common either. I got Motocross in there, Hover Force, Chip Shot, Super Pro Golf. These were more of like the INTV games. This was long after I was out of the system. I had no idea that they were still making games for the Intellivision until like 1989 or 1990, something ridiculous like that. Super Pro Football, that's a really interesting one. That thing looked like it had spent a lot of time underwater when I found it, but it still works. And that's actually, I loved the Intellivision Football, but of course it was a 1 or 2 player only game. While Super Pro Football fixes that and actually makes it a 1-player game. So I do plan to dig into that a little bit sometime, because I loved Intellivision Football. I had epic battles with my father and some of my friends in Intellivision Football. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's about it for that. Yes. Up there with the thrill of finding the Game.com was the day that I found the R-Zone. The R-Zone is terrible. If you're not familiar with it, it's a headgear unit. You put it on, it projects out onto the screen. It's all this big contraption, and for all the hassle that you have to go through to get this thing set up, to put it on, in the end, the games are like LCD watch games, like simpler versions of Nintendo Game & Watches. I mean, they're just ridiculously simple and not worth the effort. I never understood this, but for $1.99 at Goodwill, the price was right. Oh yes, and speaking of the R-Zone, I also have the R-Zone XPG, which they tried to market as like some kind of a Game Boy type standalone unit. But in this one, you open this mirror and then you turn it on, and then the game is actually projected onto this mirror. And again, it's the same ridiculous LCD games. This Atari Trackball actually is one that I had from when I was a kid. Was quite excited to find this. It's not as unusual or rare as I thought it might be, but it's still very cool. And I got a box of 2600 games here and some more 5200 games. So yeah, hopefully you can see the titles we got in here. Of note, I guess, is the Star Wars, the arcade game for the 2600, and Star Wars Jedi Arena, which I really like that game. I love the sound effects in that game. We got Joust for the 7800, Cosmic Ark, Riddle of the Sphinx, some of these cool Magic games. Journey Escape, got in here. And then I've got, again, a handful more 5200 games. I don't even know where. I found these at Goodwill, for $1.99 a piece. We've got Pac-Man, Joust, Kangaroo, Moon Patrol. And you better believe that the day I saw those sitting at Goodwill, I searched that store high and low, up and down, for a system or anything else, but alas, none was to be found. Alright, now we got ColecoVision games. Let's see. So hopefully you can see these. What's worth talking about in here? Let's see. I think this War Room, if I'm not mistaken, is a little bit more unusual game. Probe 2000 video game, War Room. I got Popeye, which was one of my favorite arcade games as a kid. Time Pilot, which was a great show-off game for the ColecoVision. It looked very close to the arcade, at least to my, preteen eyes. We got Nova Blast and Moon Sweeper, a couple of Magic games in here. So yeah, and all the classics, of course. We've got Donkey Kong Jr., Zaxxon, the games that everybody that had a ColecoVision had, Venture. But yeah, so those are the ColecoVision games. All right, now we got a bunch more 2600 games in here, and I think these are mostly deduped. Deduped with the ones that I have in the main game room. You know, I kind of just switch these boxes out. So let's see, I can pull some of these off here so we can see what we got. Underneath our Super Skateboarding and F-18 Hornet, which is a 7800 game. Yeah, classics here. River Raid 2, that's a good one. Empire Strikes Back. Let's see, we've got Keystone Capers. Choplifter for the 7800, Desert Falcon, Karateka, which is terrible on the 7800, but is such a memorable game for me back on like the Apple II and the Commodore 64. It's too bad that it's so butchered on the 7800. Impossible Mission, Ball Blazer, Dig Dug, Hat Trick, and Pole Position 2. All right, well that does it for box number 3. Now we're gonna hit the big one, box number 4. All right, and finally, we're gonna go into box number 4. This one is a big one. Okay, so first we've got a Intellivision INTV System 3. I believe I picked this up with a box of games at a garage sale for $5 a number of years ago. It probably needs some work, but never had this variant before, the INTV System 3, so I was excited to pick that up. And we've got a couple, and again, like I said, there was a time when these things were being practically given away, and so I did pick up a few of them. Just different models, and again, the ones that had the better sound chip. If I saw those sitting in amongst the others, I went ahead and picked those up, just because I felt like it was worth pulling those out. And let's see, I've got a 4-switch Woody 2600 here. I like the Woody. That's I didn't have an Atari as a kid, but my next door neighbor did, just like this one. Next we've got a Sega Light Phaser for the Sega Master System. Alright, and next up we've got another 2600. This is actually a Sears Telegames model of the 2600, and you can see it's got the Telegames center that came with it. Pull this off, lift it up would probably be a better idea. You can see we've got some 2600 games under there. If I'm not mistaken, I think these are all doubles that I've got stuck under here for now. But yes, just like the other one, this works great. This is a 6-switch. It's not a heavy 6er, unfortunately, but it is a 6-switch. It's a really early model of the Telegames system. Another Genesis. You know, one of these, none of those. I did modify one to add AV cables to it. But yes, this is another Model 1, and again, I believe another fairly early one. We've got a ColecoVision expansion module here. This allows you to play 2600 games on the ColecoVision. Got a video touchpad for the 2600 here that I picked up for $2. The Star Raiders overlay in it. Got a couple of ColecoVision controllers here. These came with one of the systems that I bought. They have like ball-type joystick ends on them that someone modified and put on there. I've never actually tried them, but I didn't even pay anything for these. They just were bundled in with some other stuff I bought. Ah, here we go. Yes, yet another Model 1 Genesis. And this one I did try one of my first modding jobs, and I modded it to use AV outputs. So it worked great. It was a fun fun little project. And then in my quest to get all the different variants of the Sega CD, I've also got a Model 2 set up here with a Model 2 Genesis and a Model 2 Sega CD. Works great. And this was the more reliable of the two, so if for some reason I'm not using my CDX, I've pulled this thing out once or twice. The thing that this one has, and I hope I'm not the only one that thinks this way, I know a few other people have mentioned this, so I'm sure I'm not, but the Model 2 has the best intro song of any console ever. And then got another Xbox here, and then yes, another fat PS2 with another network adapter on the back, and I don't even recall how I ended up with this one. And then finally the latest box that I put out here, which I covered to some extent around Christmas time, was a box of stuff that I ended up bringing back here from my parents' house that had some of my old video games in it. So you can see here that I've got this is my original Intellivision, the one that I repaired in that Intellivision repair video. My Intellivision 2. And then a whole stack of loose Intellivision games laying in here. And I think that's it. Everything else I've got in here is pretty common Intellivision games, the ones that I've probably already shown a lot of these in some of the other boxes, because these are my originals. Those were some other ones I picked up more recently. Well, that'll do it for part 2 of my collection video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for part 3, where I'll show you my computer collection, which includes my Commodore 64 collection, my Apple II collection, including an Apple II GS, and then my PC long box collection. And I have a pretty good collection of long box games that I picked up a while back. So stay tuned for part 3. Would love to hear any feedback you might have about part 2, and thanks again for watching.